Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to make a fun birthday card and we're going to be using some of the brand new mini die sets from Art Impressions. So let's go ahead and get started. So these are the two mini die sets we're going to be using today. This one here on the left has all the little tools and the one on the right has all these little crafty items. So this is the tools mini die set. And the other one is called the Craft Mini Die Set. Now for paper, I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and die cut these pieces. And from the Craft Die Set, all I want is that little bottle. It's a little bottle of glue, but we're going to use it a little bit differently today. Now with orange and carmine red, these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, I'm going to start doing my coloring. I'm going to start with the orange, then I'm going to add that carmine red and just pull that down. And I'm trying to separate this hammer into two parts here, the handle and then the top of the hammer. And I'm going to do the same thing here with the screwdriver. Now on the screwdriver, I'm going to separate it in a couple different places. And you can see there I added a little bit of a dark shadow right there along that band. And then I'm just going to pull that color right to the end to keep it lightest at the end. And here I'm just adding a little bit more of that orange. Now with gray and light gray, I'm going to do the tops of the tools here. So I'm going to put the light gray all over, then I'm going to add that darker gray and then just kind of pull that up. And then on the hammer as well, I wanted to create a little separation between the head of the hammer and the rest of it there. So I'm just drawing a little line and then I'm going to pull that ink to the side. Now for the screwdriver, I'm just going to add the light, then the dark, and then just pull that right to the tip of the screwdriver. Now you could also use here some mirror paper, some metallic paper in silver to do this, but I decided to color these in. Now with this bottle, I'm going to do the same thing with the orange and the carmine red, just adding my color at the top and the bottom and then pulling in towards the middle. I do want to avoid that little label in the center there. I'm going to do that in the two colors of gray. And here I'm using the light gray and then the dark gray to do the top on the bottle. And I'm going to separate that a little bit too into a couple different areas here. Just by adding that darker shade, we can make this look a little bit more three-dimensional. And then again for this label, I'm coming in with the light gray, a little bit of the dark gray in the four corners, and then pulling in towards the center. Now for the little wrench here, I'm going to put the light gray all over, and I'm just putting the dark gray on one side and just pulling that up towards the other side there, just to give a little shadow on one side here. Now for the saw, I'm starting with that light gray, then again I'm going to define this a little bit more here, so I want to create that line for the saw portion, and then I'm just going to pull that color down towards the blades on the saw here. And then for the handle on the saw, I'm going to be using mustard and mid-brown. I'm going to apply that mustard color all over, and then the mid-brown just on either side, and just kind of pull in towards the middle. I want to give it kind of a rustic look here, a little bit the look of wood grain. And then with my Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen, this is a permanent black pen. This is the 0.1 millimeter. I'm just going to draw three little dots here, like the nails that hold this saw together. And you can see all of those pieces up close. Now for the die, I'm going to use a rounded rectangle double stitch die from Art Impressions. And I'm going to die cut 2 of these. And it's a lot easier if you place it on a little bit of an angle before you run it through your die cutting machine. And I've got 2 of these with that beautiful stitched edge. Now using my Tombow adhesive, I'm going to temporarily position this first panel in place. So this is going to be for the outside of the card. I'm using the Lawn Fawn brick stencil to do my stenciling here. And I'm going to line this up and tape it down with a little bit of purple tape. I want to make sure it's nice and straight. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink pad and just tapping a little bit off onto my glass media mat first. I'm going to apply that color all over this stencil. And I do want to keep it fairly light here, so I am tapping a little of the excess off. And I'm going to do this all the way on this entire panel. Now you can see this beautiful brick pattern that we get here. So while that ink is still wet, I'm going to go back with my applicator and just blend out these edges. I just want to soften up that brick pattern around the edges. I want to bring your eye into the center here. So I'm just going to soften all of that up. And if I do this while that ink on the stenciled area is still a little bit damp, I can easily move that around a little bit. Now I'm going to take the black soot Distress Oxide ink and just go around the edges just a little, coming in maybe a little bit less than I did with the gray. I just want to create a little shadow around the edges here. Again, bringing your eye in towards the center here. Going back with that Hickory Smoke, I'm just going to blend that out. So this is the front panel for our card. Now for the inside of the card, I'm going to take that second white panel and I'm going to lay the stencil back down. But I don't want to stencil the entire panel this time. I'm just going to do sort of the center part, just the middle part. I'm just sort of mimicking the front just a little bit, but I don't want to recreate the front of the card. Just want to give the illusion of the brick in here on the inside of the card. And you can do as much or as little here as you want. You could just have a little hint of it down in the corner. Here, I just stayed sort of in the middle of this panel. So now you can see these two side by side. Now using my clear stamps from Art Impressions and this little guy, this little happy dancing guy, and one of the sentiments, I'm going to use the Dance It Out set. I'm going to go ahead and place that in my mini Misty. I'm inking it up with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink and I'm going to stamp him. I just love this little guy. There's so many things you can do with him. So now I'm going to grab the dull blue. And this is a really pretty blue and I'm going to use this to do his jeans. And I didn't say earlier, but the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens are a water-based marker. And I'm using my blender pen to do the blending here. But you can also use a water brush, or you could dip a brush in water. Either way, you just want to control the amount of water that you use. With the blender pen, I find it's much easier. It's pretty well controlled for you. And it just simply blends everything out. And you have that fine detailer tip, which makes it really easy to get into these little tight spaces here. So I'm just trying to create some light and dark areas here, and don't be too fussy with this. Just place a little color where you think it might be the darkest, and then I'm just pulling up towards the top here, keeping that top part of his leg very light. And then for the other leg here, I'm just going to pull down. I'm just going to add the darker color up underneath and pull down towards the bottom of the pant leg here. And then I'll add a little shadow right along that cuff. Now for the next color, I'm going to take the mustard and I'm going to do his shirt with this. And here I'm going to try to keep some shadows underneath his arms here. And then I'm just going to pull up towards the top of his sleeve. And then along the pant line, I'm going to keep it the darkest. And kind of along where the buttons meet each other there. Right along the center of the shirt, I'm going to keep it darker. So you can see here, I'm just using one color for each of these. Now you could use 2 or 3 colors to do your blending, but in this case, I just wanted to keep it simple, so I'm just using the one color and just blending it out. And it's really going to give us a nice shading. And now I'm going to grab the mid brown, and that's for the shoes. I'm just going to add some darker areas here, kind of towards the back of the shoe, and I'm going to keep the front of the shoes the lightest, or the tops of the shoes, I should say. And then I'm going to go back to that mustard color and do the socks. Now for his little belt here, I'm going back to that mid brown, just putting a little color on each side and bringing it in towards the center. And then with the flesh color, I'm going to do the hands and the face. For the hands, I'm just simply adding a little color at the bottom of the hand here and pulling that up towards the top. And then for his face, I'm going to add a little bit of the sugar almond pink. So I'm blending out the flesh color. Then I want to make the face a little bit ruddy looking. So there's the sugared almond pink. And I figure he's dancing around, so he'd probably be getting a little bit red-faced. And so I'm adding a little bit of that pink along his chin and then along the top of his nose and on his cheek there. And then with the Haze blue, which is just a really, really light blue, I'm going to add a little reflection to his glasses. And then with light gray and gray, I'm going to do the hair and the eyebrows. And for the eyebrows, I'm just adding a little bit of that darker gray just off to the left side of the eyebrow and pulling it over towards the right. Now grabbing some detail scissors, I'm going to cut this out, and I do want to leave a little bit of a white border all the way around. And you can see that there. I'm going to grab the sentiment for the front of the card, and it says, "You're not old, you just need a little WD-40. And I just think this is so cute. So this sentiment just struck me as so funny because my mom and I used to always joke about the fact that with a little bit of WD-40, some duct tape, and some bubble gum, we could fix just about anything in the house. And apparently now we can use it to protect us from old age. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stamp this right at the top of this panel here. And then what I want to do is make sure that stamp is nice and clean. So I'm going to spend a little time cleaning that off. And then what I want to do is just take the WD-40. I want that little section of the stamp, and I'm going to stamp that on this little bottle. This is the bottle he's going to be dancing around with. So this is, instead of a bottle of glue, we're going to make this a bottle of WD-40. So I just want to mask off the rest of that sentiment. You could always just cut this sentiment with your scissors. It's no harm. I just wanted to keep it together. So I'm masking it off while I ink up the WD-40 portion, and then I'm just going to stamp that. And you can see that there. So now let's do the inside of the card as long as we have the Misty out here. So I'm going to this other little collection. This is the Be Happy Laugh Line set. And this has some wonderful sentiments on it. And we're going to be using that one that says, "Happy birthday, let's see that happy dance." So I'm going to ink this up, and stamp this right in the center of this panel. So next I'm going to make a standard A2 size card. So this measures 11 by 4 1/4, and I'm going to score that at 5 1/2. So again, that's a standard A2 size card, which the finished card will measure 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this inside panel, and I'm just centering that on the inside of the card. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the front panel. And I'm using my ATG 700 permanent adhesive to stick this down. So now I'm going back to that die, and I'm going to cut one more. I don't need the whole thing. I just need part of this larger rounded stitched rectangle die. So I'm just going to cut a portion of it out of some black 100-pound cardstock. And I'm going to cut that. I just need to go up about 1 1/2 inches. So I'm going to cut this at 1 1/2 inches. And then I'm going to cut another little strip that will be 1/4 of an inch. And this is going to create the floor. So I'm kind of envisioning this is the basement floor here that we're creating. So I'm using my Hero Hues Unicorn Pigment Ink. And I'm going to use my foam applicator tool. And I do have a separate one just for this because I want it to stay nice and white. So I'm using that applicator tool, and I'm just going to go around the bottom and the sides of that lower section. And then for this little strip, I'm going to go right along the top and the bottom. And you don't need to be fussy. It doesn't have to be perfect here. So now I can go ahead and attach this little floor section to my card. And then this little piece here is going to be like the baseboard of the floor. And I'm using my 1/4 inch score tape to place that down. So I'm just removing the backing from that tape, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that. Now I've got my fun little guy here, and I want him holding a screwdriver in one hand. So I'm going to cut there just to cut his thumb, separate his thumb from the rest of his fingers here. Just so I can make it look a little bit more like he's holding that screwdriver. And then just trim off any excess there. Now to attach that, I'm using my Nuvo glue pen. This is the chisel tip pen. And this glue comes out kind of a light blue, but it dries clear. And I'm using this because it's very thin glue, so it's not going to leak out. You're not going to get too much excess. It goes on nice and easy. And then I'm putting a little on the palm of his other hand, and I'm going to attach that bottle there. Now I want to pop him up, so I'm going to use my Scotch foam mounting tape, and I'm going to just place a whole bunch of that around the back here and pop him up. Now I've got all my other little tools, and I'm just going to have those laying on the ground here, on the floor here. And for the saw, I'm going to pop that up with some foam mounting tape as well. So let me give you a closer look at today's card. And as always, all the products I've used today are listed below and also on my blog. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. As always, thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.